chapter 10 and verse 5. And Jesus answered and said unto them, for the hardness of your heart. I want us to look at this number here, 4641 in Strong's, to determine what it is. Where it says, sclerocardia, hardness of heart, hard-heartedness, especially or specifically destitution of spiritual perception. Do we all see that? There is a condition that Jesus himself speaks about, and he describes it as destitution of spiritual perception. In other words, to exist in a condition where we're not able to have access into the spiritual ages, where people are banned from this condition. Now, I'm not specifically dealing with what is written in Mark 10:5, but rather is using this just as a starting point for the teaching this morning, and identifying this word that is translated as the hardness of your heart, or hard-heartedness. I refer to this condition as us being in a physical condition, that in this realm, in this world, we exist in a condition that is referred to as the physical condition. Now, I'm going to attempt to describe what this physical condition is, because it is good for us to understand the condition that God says we find ourselves in this world. We need to understand our condition in order for us to extricate ourselves from this position. And I'm speaking about a definition for the physical condition that we find ourselves in. It is a condition that men are naturally born into, that dictates and determines that we are born in destitution of spiritual perception, with no access to the spiritual ages and to Christ. This defines the problem that we find ourselves in as we exist in this realm. It's a condition that says that we do not have access into the spiritual ages, that in fact we cannot see Christ Jesus in our natural state, and that we cannot see into eternity, that we cannot see into the spiritual ages. This is our problem, and this is the condition that we need healing from. Let me repeat. It is good for us to understand the condition we find ourselves in naturally. It is good to understand the condition that all of us find ourselves in. There's no one in this world who does not suffer from this condition, from this state of existence, from this disease that God says we need a healing from. What I'm addressing is, what is the prevailing condition of man in this physical age? Once you're outside of the realm of the spiritual connection, then you are in the physical condition, even if you are in the habit of being spiritually connected to Jesus Christ. If you're not experiencing a spiritual connection to an original spiritual work, then your inheritance is the physical condition. It's the unexpanded state of our mind that we need reversal of nature for. This condition, the fact that we cannot see Jesus Christ in eternity, the fact that we cannot see into eternity, means that left on our own, we are stuck in this physical condition, and that we have no hope of overcoming our condition that we find ourselves in. The physical condition is by nature unchangeable and resists change and authority. I want us to turn to Ephesians 4, please, and verse 17. This I say, therefore, and testify in the Lord. I need to check that word that was translated as testify. The Greek number in Strong's is 3143. I want you to turn there, please. Mat-ah-yot-ace, to be adduced as a witness, to be brought forward and quoted for formal consideration. That Paul was brought forward before these people that he was writing to give a testimony while he was remaining in the Lord. Because we can only testify, we can only be brought forward into the spiritual ages to testify about the Lord if we are remaining in a spiritual connection in the Lord Jesus Christ. That ye no longer walk as other Gentiles walk, in the vanity of their mind, in the uselessness of what our minds dictate to us. I need you to check on that word that was translated as vanity 3153 in Strong's, which is Mat-ah-yot-ace. I want you to look at it, and I want you to see everything that is involved in this condition of uselessness. It speaks of inutility, that this state is a state of uselessness. It is of no use to us for our salvation and deliverance. It speaks of transientness. Who sees that one? That we're in a state that is passing quickly, and it is a temporary state. And it's a state that dictates what? Moral depravity. And Paul is declaring to us that we should not walk according to what our mind says to us, which is useless in regards to our own salvation. In other words, don't let our mind take us to places that are of our own imagination that is going to yield anything. It's not going to yield any reward or benefit to us as far as our salvation is concerned. Who's still here? Ephesians 4:18. Having the understanding, I need to check on that, the anoia. 1271 in the Strong's number. The deep thought, properly the mind or its natural disposition. Having our deep thought, the things that we can think deeply of, and the functioning of our mind and its natural inclination is what is described as darkened, that we cannot see into the spiritual ages, being alienated or being a non-participant in the life of God. What is the life of God? Everything that is good and excellent in the glory that exists on the other side. The natural state of our mind, as we function in the natural state of our mind, which is uselessness for us regarding our salvation and our deliverance, we find ourselves that our deep thoughts and the functioning of our mind is separated naturally from the things that exist in the spiritual ages. Because we don't have access naturally to the things that exist in Jesus Christ in eternity in the spiritual ages, because of that, we find ourselves a non-participant in this life of glory that we can experience when our mind is expanded by a spiritual connection to Jesus Christ on the other side. I need to look at that Greek word for you to really see it before you, that was translated as alienated in number 526. I need to see that, please. To estrange away, to be non-participant in. Now what God desires to share with us, what Christ Jesus himself defines as the abundant life, is our participation in the fullness of the glory of God as he exists in himself on the other side. It is our participation in that glory that Jesus Christ himself defines as the abundant life that he desires for us to have. And that is why he came. And that is why he's available to us even as we exist in this life, so that we can have this taste of the glory even as we pass through this life. But while our mind is functioning in its own strength and capacity, we have no participation in this life of glory in Jesus Christ. In other words, our mind must become expanded because we have submitted to something specific that Jesus Christ has shown us. And when we submit to it, in fact, not in attitude, we are connected to that thing that Jesus Christ shows us that exists eternally on the other side. And when we are connected to that thing, we are connected to Jesus Christ, we have access to his glory, and this is what Jesus Christ desires for us to have. But if your mind is functioning in its own strength, then you don't have access to this life. You become a non-participant in this life that Jesus is stretching out his hand towards us with, through the ignorance that remains in them because of the hardness and blindness of their heart. It isn't because you want to be blind. It isn't because you want to have this fact of hardness of heart. You want to escape from it, but in your own capacity, you are in bondage. You are shackled up to it because you don't have the freedom to move outside of this realm of bondage. Who is here? While you remain in your natural capacity of your own mind. Romans 8:20, please. Romans chapter 8 and verse 20. We're dealing with what is the physical condition. What is this hardness of heart? What is the hard-heartedness that Jesus describes us as existing in? What is it? This is what we're trying to define, so that you can come to a mental understanding of your own shortfall without the possibility of salvation, and that Jesus Christ is the antidote. He's the remedy that we need to take care of the poison that exists in our system. Romans 8:20. For the creature was made subject because the person in the physical condition became subordinate. He became obedient to Mat-ah-yot-ace, this moral depravity, this transientness, and this inutility, the fact of our own uselessness regarding our own selves. It's saying, for the person in the physical condition, are you doing with me? For the creature, our physical existence, for the person in the physical condition became subordinate under the control of, in our natural occurrence, in our natural existence, in our natural condition, not because we want it that way. It's what is. It It is the condition that we exist in. For the person in the physical condition became, due to Adam's inheritance, we became subordinate under the control of moral depravity. Our moral depravity, the fact that we are functioning in a state of mind that is short of the glory of God and relishing in the things that are physical. For the person in the physical condition became under the control of moral depravity, which is of no use to us, which is of no use to you in your search for salvation and deliverance. The fact that your mind functions in this lack and in your relishing, in your lust, does not prompt you or push you forward towards God. It keeps you away. The fact of you functioning in your own moral depravity is like a wall that separates you from God in Jesus Christ. Who's still here? For the person in this physical condition that I'm dealing with is under the control of moral depravity, which is of no use to us in our search for salvation and deliverance. Thank God it's only transientness, passing quickly. Thank God God made it a temporary state that we can escape from forever. But the fact that you're operating in lack is of no help to you. The problem is we do not know of our own selves unless shown differently by Jesus Christ that we are operating in this lack. Because the mind thinks that everything it knows is everything there is to know. When you're in ignorance, your mind says to you that you already know all there is to know, because the mind has access to everything it feels is 100% of knowledge, and therefore the mind is complacent and satisfied in what is present before it. I wonder if you're there. When you know something, you think that what you know is all there is to know, that you don't need to know anything else until you learn something in addition to what you know. Then you begin to understand, well, really, I was ignorant all the time. But as long as you don't know it, then you don't know that you're really ignorant. And Jesus Christ is the one who has to persuade us that there are things in addition to what we know exist on the other side in Him. And until He shows it to us, we feel that we already have it all and know it all. Who's still here this morning? What I'm saying to you is that this situation that we find ourselves in naturally is a condition that Jesus declares to be pitiable. And that's found in Matthew 6 and 23, if you want to go there for yourself. Jesus pities us. He looks on us with pity as He realizes that we are in need of healing from our own ignorance regarding who we are in Him. In this condition that we find ourselves, we are not able to obey the command of Jesus Christ not to judge after the flesh. Jesus says, do not judge by external appearance. What is the opposite of external appearance? It is not what is on the inside, but is what exists pertaining to that vessel on the other side. The opposite of external appearance is not what's on the inside, but what exists in eternity regarding that vessel who is here. I need to turn, just for completion's sake, if you would, to John 7 and 24, where it says, judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. judge according to that which is in eternity in Jesus Christ and according to his will. The physical condition is by nature unchangeable. It cannot be changed. The fact that you're in a state of lack of access to Jesus Christ is a state that is unchangeable outside of the intervention of Jesus Christ. No man can reverse that condition on your behalf, even if they will it with everything in their power. And that is what makes Jesus Christ God, that he is the only one who can unlock the mysteries that exist on the other side pertaining to your deliverance. And the mystery is not the fact that we can't know it, but in as far as Christians are concerned, a mystery is something that we cannot communicate in ourselves and that we need to rely on the Holy Ghost and Jesus Christ to communicate to others. It's not within your power to resist rebellion against authority. It flows naturally out of your physical condition. And where true authority is established, the physical condition naturally flees from that place of accepting the authority that exists. The physical condition is by nature unchangeable and resists change and resists any type of authority. Turn me to Hebrews 13 and 7, please. Hebrews 13 and 7 and 17. Hebrews 13 and 17, where it says, obey them that have rule over you and submit yourselves, for they watch over your souls, as they must give account, that they may do it with joy and not with grief, for that is unprofitable for you. Now that is what the King James says. The question is, what was originally written is somewhat different from this. And it's closer to the truth of what Jesus Christ is trying to liberate us with. If you go, first of all, to 3982 in Strong's, to discern what that is, to see, in fact, with your natural eyes, what this is. People to convince, to be in a state of persuasion. In fact, to be persuaded by those that lead you. And you need to look at 2233 as well, for you to be convinced. Otherwise you may doubt. Who says it? To lead or command. What's the purposing? What's the purpose of being commanded? So that you can be led. Jesus commands, according to Mark 10:5, those who can't see, because they can't see. And the reason for him commanding us in the Bible is so that we would accept those things that he has established, and his credibility is beyond doubt by everything that he has already predicted. We need to be persuaded by those that lead us. Why? In other words, you need to be persuaded by those that lead you. Why? Because the ones who lead you are trying to lead you to the spiritual ages where Christ is. because they watch over your souls. You know exactly what was there in that midsection. The third part, unfortunately, they have messed up as they must give account. They have messed up section up real bad. As they are giving you the spiritual work that they are spiritually connected to, the word is logos, not account. It's not a natural account. As they are giving you the spiritual work that they are spiritually connected to, because they seek to be spiritually connected to the spiritual work. In fact, they're seeking the logos. Why? Not in order for anything else other than that you may be inspired into the spiritual ages. And that is the purpose of the logos. That's the purpose of the spiritual connection to the spiritual work. To inspire so that others can have access to see Jesus Christ, which we get from Hebrews 13:22. Logos paraklesis, to allow others to have access to the spiritual ages because of the spiritual connection. Who is here? Back to verse 17. That they may do it with joy and not grief. Where does the grief come from? It comes from being resisted as you try to minister to those and to lead those others to Jesus Christ who are opposing themselves. Do not resist the minister who is being connected to the spiritual work, because you're resisting who's here. You're resisting the minister, makes it unprofitable for you. Not for the minister, because the minister is going to function in that work in any case. The minister is going to have his spiritual connection to Jesus Christ, and you're going to be left out in the cold because you did not allow yourselves, you did not hold yourselves up. You did not allow the Holy Ghost to translate you because you resisted his work. Not my work, because you resisted his work to take you up so that you can come before Jesus Christ, so that Jesus Christ can declare something to you that is needed in your life. Who is still here? Turn me then to 2 Peter 2:10, please. Those that walk after the flesh in the lust, those that walk after the lust of moral contamination, not uncleanness, but the fact that they're involved, they're wrapped up in having accepted the prompting of their moral depravity. They're wrapped up in this moral contamination because they have submitted. That those who are involved in moral contamination despise rulers, being unrestrained, not presumptuous, but unrestrained, not self-willed, but self-pleasing, are not afraid to blaspheme the glory. I want you to check those two words, 987. You need to see it for yourselves. When you resist the ministry of a spiritual work by Jesus Christ, when you resist it because you are contaminated by your moral depravity and your involvement in its works, and you're unrestrained and you're self-pleasing, you're afraid to blaspheme the glory. Do you see 987? Look at the other one, 1391. the glory. How can anyone blaspheme the glory? What does it take to blaspheme the glory? To give the glory a bad name? Well, it's very simple, because if you reject the minister who is offering, who is extending a hand so that you can experience this glory in Jesus Christ, and you reject it, then you're actually saying that the glory is not worth the destruction of your own moral depravity and your moral contamination. Who's here? That your moral depravity is worth more, and your involvement in it is worth more than what is being offered to you in Jesus Christ. You're giving it a bad name, a bad reputation, by your rejection of the spiritual work that is being offered to you in Jesus Christ. Who's still here? Now, what I'm saying to you is that those who are this way inclined, that it is beyond your capacity not to blaspheme the glory, because it's in your hand, it's out of your hand, it's out of your control. Therefore, what is needed is a turning away from this method that you have in your life that is causing you to be guilty of rejecting Jesus Christ and the glory. Who's still here? Let me just back up very quickly and just give you a recap. What I've said is that outside of the spiritual connection, outside of your mind being expanded by a spiritual connection to Jesus Christ, it's not in receiving knowledge of what exists on the other side pertaining to your deliverance. In other words, it's not because you see something that exists on the other side in Jesus Christ that your mind is liberated and that your physical condition is neutralized. It is not because you see, it is because you submit to Jesus Christ that you can be spiritually connected to Jesus Christ, to the glory, to the spiritual ages, and it is because of that connection, it is coming out of that spiritual connection that your physical condition is reversed, and that is what you seek. God does not seek your submission. What he seeks is your deliverance and your healing. That is the driving force behind his presenting himself to you, so that you can submit to him for the purpose of being healed by Jesus Christ himself, not by men. Jesus uses the tool of the spiritual connection to incite and entice others into the spiritual way, because when we are functioning in a spiritual walk that exists on the other side, those who are being ministered to have access to Jesus Christ, to the spiritual ages, and to everything that is there pertaining to your own deliverance. Who is still here? Outside of the spiritual connection, your condition is established in that of a physical existence where you don't have access to the other side. You need to see Jesus Christ and to submit to what he shows you, so that your mind can be liberated, so that your physical condition can be neutralized, and so that you can get a taste of who you are in Jesus Christ on the other side, that should convince you to continue submitting to Jesus Christ. What are some of the symptoms of the disease of the physical condition? It is a disease, since God regards us as sick, since he says we're in need of healing. We're in need of healing so that our condition can be neutralized. A symptom is a sign of the existence of a condition. A it's proof positive that that condition exists in someone. Speaking about the physical condition now. A symptom is a sign of the existence of a condition, especially a perceptible change from what is normal. Now what is normal is that which exists on the other side, that which Christ created us as. In other words, as a spiritual creation, originally created in the Rima age. That is normal. If we depart from that standard, then we are going to exhibit a symptom, something that is acutely manifest to those who are around us and to Jesus Christ, that indicates that we are suffering from the condition or from the disease that this symptom is representative of. A symptom is a sign of the existence of a condition in the body or in its functioning, indicating disease or injury. The symptom is a way for you to understand for your own souls and know that others can see that this condition does exist in you. For example, fever may be a symptom of the flu. The physical condition is a disease, but I'm asking, what are the symptoms? What are the things that may be manifested to indicate that this disease is present in someone and that they are in need of healing? The result, the outcome of your being in this condition is that the lusts of the diseased condition of the soul have free course in you, and that you are motivated and moved to action to fulfill the lusts of the flesh. It's very simple. I want you first to look at Ephesians chapter 2 with me, please. And verse 3. Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 3. Among whom also we all lived and remained, not conversation, at some time in the lust of our flesh. I want you to look at 1939, please, in the lexical. Epithumia, the active and individual desire resulting from pathos, the diseased condition of the soul. It indicates that the diseased condition of the soul, called the physical condition, does exist in us if these lusts are present. Look at 14a.The, please, in the lexical again. Pathos, to wound, hurt, or to suffer. Pathos is the soul's diseased condition out of which the various lusts spring. All of us, including Paul, had lived and remained at some time in these lusts of our flesh, fulfilling the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature the children of wrath, the children unto whom God's passion would be someday outpoured if we're not prevented from this state of desiring to fulfill the lust of the flesh. Who's here? Jude 1:16. haven't reached these symptoms, but we're approaching to that place where we speak about the symptoms, but as we approach them, these symptoms are going to become manifest. Because it's all one teaching, it's all interrelated. And I've only divided it so that we can have a physical structure to follow. These are grumblers. Blaming faith, F-A-T. I want to check that one, 3202. Blaming the fact of your circumstances, where you were born, when you were born, how you were born, into which family you were born, into which church Jesus placed you. Who saw that in Strong's? Blaming faith, 3202. Who saw that, please? Thank you. Walking after their own lusts, and their mouth speaketh great swelling words, having men's persons in admiration because of advantage. Just going back a little bit, why do you think people are complaining and grumbling? Why do you think people are blaming their faith? Why are they complaining about the situation? Well, it should be obvious, of course, because you are not satisfied and fulfilled by your submission to Jesus Christ. You don't have the spiritual connection that fulfills. Therefore, you are always going to be in this state of murmuring and grumbling and complaining and blaming your faith, because you're not fulfilled. The only thing that fulfills is submitting to Jesus Christ so that you can experience this spiritual connection to the other side, so that you can taste the glory, because we have a lack. We have a need for this fulfillment by some connection to the glory, and outside of that connection to the glory, we can never be fulfilled. And the only way for you to taste that glory is by submission to Jesus Christ and the spiritual connection. Outside, you can never taste the fullness of life that God intended for you to have, because that is how He originally created us before the inheritance of Adam. Who's here? He created us with a desire for us to be connected to that glory. We have a desire deep within us that says we can only be fulfilled and satisfied in our life when we have a connection to the glory, that we experience the fullness and the excellence of everything that is great in Jesus Christ as we experience the glory by our connection to Jesus Christ. Outside of that, you'll never be fulfilled, my brothers. It says, these are grumblers, blaming faith, walking after their own lusts. In other words, being motivated, being propelled by their own lusts. Do you know what it means to be motivated? It means that your desire is for a certain thing, and unless that desire is quenched by your participation in the act, that lust remains thirsty and hungry. You have to regulate this against the desire for Jesus Christ, the desire for the glory that God placed within you, so that it can counteract that other force that propels you to fulfill what your own flesh desires. These are grumblers and blaming faith, walking after their own lusts, and their mouth speaketh great swelling words. Their mouth speaketh insolence, things that are out of place, that they don't belong in the realm of the spiritual ages, because they're admiring the outward appearance for benefit, for profit, in order to receive material gain. Who is here? You sure you're here? If you're seeking to fulfill the lusts of your flesh, then what you're really seeking is to continually fulfill those deep desires that are consuming you, and you're going to say anything in order to fulfill, to get you to a place where your own desires can be fulfilled. You're going to twist and turn until your own carnal desires are fulfilled. You're going to speak those things which are deceptively leading others astray, so that you can get them to submit to your own desires. Turn me to 1 Thessalonians, please. Four and 5. Chapter 4 and verse 5. Not in the diseased condition of the soul, in lust, even as the Gentiles which knew not God. Who's here? We don't need to be functioning. We don't need to be moving, trying to fulfill the lusts of our flesh, but we should be tearing ourselves away from that lust in order for us to have a chance to find God, or rather to have God find us. 1 John chapter 2. For all that is in the world, the lust, the deep desires, the burning desires of the flesh, and the lust of the eyes, you want everything you see, and the self-confidence of the present state of existence. I want you to check that, please, because maybe I'm just making it up. So look first at 2:12. In Strong's 2:12, please. By implication, self-confidence. It's not just the boasting, the bragging. It has to be the fact that we are complacent in our natural existence, that we are satisfied. Look at the other one, 979, please. It's crucial that you see this. The present state of existence. If your mind is not expanded, if you're existing in the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eye, if the lust of what's within you is driving you onwards, is propelling you, and the lust of the eye, everything you see is what you want, then you're existing in, and a part of that is the self-confidence of relying on who you are and what you know in the natural, that you figure, well, I can do it. I can fix my situation. I have confidence that I can do it in your own power. Then this is the condition that is not of the Father. It's not the will of the Father. It's not what the Father desires for you, because what He desires for you is for you to understand that in our own selves we can do nothing, that we're useless in as far as our deliverance and salvation is concerned, and that we must be dissatisfied even if you don't feel it on the inside. You should recognize it with your mind that the present state of your existence is not what you ought to be desiring. Verse 17. Why should we move away from the things that we're consuming that are around us to make us feel good? Because all of this is going to pass away, and the lust, your lust, is going to pass away either when you're up or when you're down. You won't have those lusts. You won't have that driving force because the fire of hell may be quenching your desires, and you're going to link your desire with your present position. He that doeth the will of God remains in the same place, relation, condition, and expectancy towards the ages. If you do the will of God, you're going to remain in a fixed position in Christ Jesus, which is going to take you towards the spiritual ages on the other side. It's leading you onwards and upwards and forwards in Jesus Christ. The result of your being in the physical condition is that the lust of the diseased condition of the soul have free course in you and are motivated and moved to action to fulfill these very lusts. Lust is an intense desire for something. It's a burning desire that drives us to satisfy that desire. Rather than being moved by Christ, we're moved by these lusts. That is our condition as we exist in the physical condition. I wonder if you're there with me so far. It's very simple. In our physical condition, the lusts of the flesh are going to be the central motivating force in our life. Our focus is going to be on fulfilling that desire. Everything in our lives is going to be towards the achievement of that goal. People who love to make money are going to be driven. They're going to not be able to sleep at night, not have any rest on Sunday, because all they can think of is how to make more money. They're driven by that. If you're involved in fornication and indulge in that act and spirit, then all your waking moments are going to be involved in seeking to fulfill that spirit. That is the state that we exist in while we are in the physical condition. Don't pretend that that is not the case, because God says that that is the case. What we need to do is recognize our weaknesses and seek to come out of it by spending time seeking God. That's our only deliverance. And what I'm saying to you is that finding God, seeking God, is a function of time. You can't find God. You are not said to be seeking God if you do not spend time trying to find Him. If you don't spend this time on looking in all the various areas where you think you can find Christ, if you don't spend the time, then you aren't said to be seeking Christ. You're doing something else, but you're not seeking Christ. All waking moments should be involved with how can I spend more time? How can I see God? Rather, how am I to make more money or to fulfill the lust of my flesh? Who's here? It's no need to pretend like we're saintly because we're not. Outside of the spiritual connection to Jesus Christ, we exist in this physical condition and are driven by these lusts. So don't anybody pretend that we're also saintly and godly, because outside of that realm of the spiritual ages and our existence and connection to it, we exist in the lust of our flesh. I know this is not going to be a very popular teaching, brothers. I know we're not going to like this, but we're going to have to go through it. I'm not condemning anybody. I'm saying this, according to the Bible, is the natural existence of men, all men. Because all have come short of the glory of God. We all fail. We all miss the mark. And we need to be striving towards the spiritual connection that can liberate us from this unexpanded mind, from this unliberated mind. As long as we are driven by the lust of our flesh, we are not liberated. We are shackling up to this physical condition and in prison, unable to deliver ourselves. That's why we need a deliverer in Jesus Christ. When you're shackled, it means you're not free to move. When the lusts of the flesh have you in a spot, it means that you're not free to move to seek God. It keeps you in a place. Therefore, you need outside assistance. Who's here? You must have outside assistance. If Jesus doesn't help you, if someone does not inspire you, then you are left shackled and in bondage. That is why God desires the logos paraclesis, so that you can have a chance of being delivered out of the lusts of your flesh. These desires that I have been describing to you, these lusts, these desires that are burning within us and consuming us, is encouraged by the oppressor, whose full nature is brought alive in you through the act that he has shown you that you have submitted to love and attitude. But in fact, Ephesians 2:2, please. Turn to me, because we all don't know and we all need to learn. Wherein at some time ye walked united with the age of this world, with the condition, it's not course, age, 165. Look at it if you don't know it. Of this world. Before we are liberated by Jesus Christ. If you're not liberated, then you're still walking in bondage to this age, to the physical condition, to the condition that this realm says and dictates that we're in. Wherein at some time you walked united with the physical condition of this world, with the age of this world, united to the ruler of the power of the non-physical. Who's here? I mean, I'm not writing this. This is Paul's inspiration from Jesus Christ. Let's read this verse, please. Just in order for you to be persuaded, look at 2596 in Strong's. On the third line, it's kata, with which it is joined. Down in place or time in varied relations according to the case, with which it is. Look at some of the words that this was translated as: about, according as to, after, against, alone, among, apart, even like, concerning, pertaining to, touching. Who sees that? Aside, at, before, beyond, by, to the charge of, concerning, covered,